Welcome back, WSU VITA volunteers. Today we are going to finish up with our discussion of income. And if you'll remember, we spent some time talking about earned income like wages, and we talked a little bit about some unearned income like interest and dividends and retirement income, as well as Social Security. Well, today we're going to talk about just kind of blanket other sources of income. Now you'll see on Form 13614C, our intake form, there's a line down at the bottom of the income section just for other income, and it gives us a list of some of the possibilities. When these types of income flow onto the return, they usually first appear on Schedule 1, which was our additional income and adjustments to income schedule. And you'll see there line 8 has a whole list of letters of different types of income that could fall under that other income line. And then this will get totaled and transferred onto the front face of the 1040. And then here is 1040 page 1, again line 8, other income from Schedule 1, line 10 was that total line where everything on Schedule 1 gets totaled up and appears here on the 1040. So this is the really important takeaway from our other income section. Even if the taxpayer does not receive an income document from whoever the payer was, the taxpayer is still required to report that income. So if they received that income in cash and didn't get a form later, that is still reportable income. So this is an area in this other income section where a lot of times people maybe forget that they had some income from this or that, and then maybe they don't get a form. So it's important just to verify with our clients, are you sure that this is all of the income that you have? Because sometimes they'll remember, oh yeah, I did this, or I got this, or something like that. So regardless of whether they get that income document, it's still required to be reported. So we're going to look at 3 common sources of other income. And you may remember back to that Schedule 1, line 8 and think, wow, there were a lot more types of income under that line. And that's true. There are lots of different kinds of other income. But these 3 are the ones that we are most likely to see through our program, and also the ones that as basic certified preparers we will be able to assist our clients with. And so that's going to be gambling income, cancellation of debt, and jury duty pay. So this is Form W2G, and for those of our clients who do some gambling, they might see some of their gambling winnings reported on this form. And this form will be required to be sent to them if they had winnings from a bingo game or a slot machine of $1,200 or more, or $1,500 if it was from Keno, and $5,000 or more if it was from a poker tournament. Other winnings could be if it was $600 or more and at least 300 times the amount of the wager. But see, it's important to remember that these amounts are kind of high for winnings, and our clients might have had other winnings that aren't reported on this form. So again, if they get this form, that's great. We might ask them if they had any other gambling winnings, and even for our other clients, we just might want to double check and make sure that they didn't have any gambling winnings, just in case they didn't get this form. Because of course, all gambling winnings are reported as other income. Now, gambling losses can be claimed, but only if our client is filing a Schedule A for itemized deductions. And it's important to remember that the Schedule A itemized deductions requires advanced certification. So if somebody happens to be itemizing, then they would be able to get their gambling losses deducted, but otherwise then they just report the winnings and they don't get to deduct the losses. Moving on to cancellation of debt, this is the form where you're going to see a cancellation of debt. It's Form 1099-C. So lenders are required to send this form for amounts of at least $600, but it's important to remember that amounts of less than $600 may still be need to be reported as other income. And in this case, the lender may have provided the taxpayer with a letter or some other notification of the cancellation of debt. Generally speaking, all canceled debt is included in income if the taxpayer was solvent just before the cancellation. If they weren't solvent, it's important to note that their return will be out of scope for us. But we would still need to determine whether or not they were solvent or weren't solvent. So Publication 4012, Tab D, has an insolvency determination worksheet. Another point about scope with cancellation of debt is that for our program, only non-business credit card debt will be in scope. And so there will be on Form 1099-C, Box 3, there's an interest expense, which is not going to be deductible for our taxpayers because it's not business related. So again, only if it's non-business credit card debt will we be working on their returns. I do want to just bring up this one little area of extension on the cancellation of debt as far as something that if any of you choose to study up and become an advanced certified preparer, it is also possible to help clients with cancellation of debt involved with their primary residence. And this would be reported on a Form 1099-A. So for our advanced certified preparers, there is what's called the exclusion from gross income of discharge of qualified principal residence indebtedness. It's a mouthful. Basically, it just means that if somebody had a cancellation of debt involved in the mortgage of their, main home, it might be possible for them to exclude that cancellation from their income. This was something that was put into law kind of after the housing crisis in 2007, and it was scheduled to sunset this year, but it's been extended through 2025 now with the Consolidated Appropriation the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021. And again, remember, this one is going to require advanced certification. So with COVID, there's been a lot of kind of changes around some of the tax laws, trying to make things more favorable for our taxpayers. And one of these areas is with student loan forgiveness. So even though most of the time cancellation of debt is includable in income, student loan forgiveness is now excluded from income, and that's through 2025. And that was done with the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. So our last form of other income that we're going to cover today is jury duty pay. And that may be reported to our clients on a Form 1099-G or a 1099 miscellaneous, probably in Box 3, other income. So again, all jury duty pay is included as other income, but it is important to differentiate and make sure that we're discussing with our clients, because if they were reimbursed for things like mileage or meals or hotel stays, those are reimbursements and not income. But they should be only getting on the forms the jury duty pay. But it's good to have a little discussion just to make sure that we're catching all of the ins and outs of what happened with that jury duty pay. Now, some employees will be able to get regular wages from their employers while they're serving on a jury instead of working at their jobs. And in this case, if they turned over their jury pay to their employer, then they might be able to claim the jury duty pay, and then they'll be able to claim an adjustment later to reduce their income by the amount of that jury duty pay. And again, that's only if they turned their jury duty pay over to their employer. So our line 8 has a lot of scope issues. We'll remember that cancellation of debt income other than non-business credit card debt is going to be out of scope for our basic preparers. For our advanced preparers, they could also help with the cancellation of debt when it involves the principal residence, but any other kind of cancellations of debt are going to be out of scope, and particularly any business cancellations of debt are out of scope. Also, any income that is rental, hobby, or other kinds of income that are not for profit, that's out of scope for the VITA program. Net operating loss deduction is out of scope. And the foreign earned income exclusion is in scope for the VITA program, but only for preparers who have the international certification. So aside from having the basic tax law certification and the advanced certification, there are a couple of other certifications you can get, military and international. And those are separate certifications that you can get. And again, the foreign earned income exclusion would require not only that you certify with basic or advanced, but you also need to get that international certification. And here are a few things that are not considered other income, but they might look like it at first. So student loan forgiveness, we kind of already brushed on that, is not considered other income. It's excludable. The higher education emergency financial aid grants, some students may have gotten an additional grant in response to COVID, and that is not considered other income. It is excludable. Emergency rental assistance is excludable to the renter, and the economic impact payments that we've been getting, those are also excludable. They are not considered other income. So now that we talked about 3 of our most common in-scope types of other income for line 8 of our Form 1040, here's what I want you to do. Go ahead on over to Lincoln Learn and answer the skill check questions. There's only 3. Then go ahead and enter the gambling income document into the appropriate tax return on TaxSlayer for our practice lab. And then remember your resources. We have publication 4012 is really helpful. Again, this is a line that has a lot of scope issues, and so at the beginning of the 4012 there's that table that you can go line by line on the tax return or through the different forms, and it tells you whether this is in scope for the program, if it requires advanced certification. It's really helpful. Also 4012 is where you can get references on what are some things that look like income but are actually excludable. And again, publication 4491 is where most of the information from this lesson comes from. I did pick up some information again from, our recent legislation, and I tried to put notification of that in the slides. So if you are curious or want to know where that came from, just look in the little box there about the act that it came from. All right, volunteers, our next lesson, we will be discussing adjustments to income. And after that, we will have reached our all-important line of adjusted gross income, which is kind of a momentous place to be. So we'll see you in just a little bit.